show you how to make this delicious pistachio and date babka. It's usually made with a chocolate and hazelnut, but I put a Middle Eastern twist to it, and I'm just going to show it to you here. It's super delicious. It's full of flavors, got some orange blossom in there, pistachios, dates, and I hope you really like it. So shall we get baking? So we're going to start off by making the dough for the babka, because we need to let it rise for an hour and a half before filling it. So what we have here, I've measured everything already. So what we need is 3 cups of flour, plain flour, with 1 teaspoon of baking powder. And I'm going to sift that in because I don't like to have any lumps left. And it just results in a better, more smoother dough. So we'll go ahead and sift this in. And let's get sifting. Create a bit of mist, but it's okay because we're going to use the surface and flour it a little bit. So once you sift in the flour, you add in 1 tablespoon of active yeast to one side. 3 tablespoons of granulated sugar to the other side, and just then mix that in the bowl. So mix everything together, and then what we're going to add is 3 heaped tablespoons of yogurt. The yogurt results in a really nice soft dough or texture. So after the 3 tablespoons of the heaped yogurt, we'll add a 1/4 cup of vegetable oil. If you don't have vegetable oil, you can also use sunflower oil. Pretty much it's the same, it results in the same thing. And I'm just going to mix that in, just to combine everything. And then we have here 1 cup of warm water, but you may not need to use the whole cup. So I usually start off by adding 3/4 of it, and just mixing everything to combine. And then once you've mixed everything to combine with just like a normal spoon, we will turn it out onto the surface. If you can hear a little cute sound in the background, that's just my niece. She's so adorable. Having a special auntie and niece day. So I've combined everything into my bowl, and we're now just going to turn that out onto the surface. Usually I use a stand mixer with the dough hook and knead it onto the stand mixer for about 9 minutes until it's really smooth and elastic. But yeah, I know a lot of people don't have a stand mixer, so we just do it by hand, which is also okay. And I do that, I knead it for about 10 minutes by hand. So if you notice that the dough is still quite dry, you can add just a little bit more water. In this case, I'm going to add just a tiny bit more, but don't end up adding too much because it will become really stiff. And just keep kneading it and mixing it until it becomes really smooth. You'll be able to tell by stretching it, and once you're stretching it like now, it just comes apart straight away, so it's not ready. So we'll continue kneading and wait. It's a good exercise. So I've been kneading my dough for about 10 minutes and it's all nice and smooth now. So what we're going to do, you can grab just a large bowl, medium to large bowl, lightly oil it with vegetable oil and drop your dough in there. Cover it in cling film and put it in a warm temperature spot for an hour and a half until it doubles in size. In the meantime, you can prepare the date and pistachio filling for it, which I've prepared a little earlier. So what you need to do, blitz your pistachios until they're quite fine in a food processor, and then chop your dates separately and add them to the food processor along with the cinnamon, the cardamom and the orange blossom with a bit of splash of water, until it forms a paste like that, and then just set it aside until we're ready to fill it later. So we'll be back in an hour and a half so we can fill and shape the babka. So the dough's been rising for about an hour and a half and it's doubled in size, it's quite soft. So we can start shaping it now. I'm going to lightly flour the surface, not too much. And we'll tip the dough onto the surface, and what we're going to do, we're going to just punch any air out and shape it lightly into like a rectangle, and we're going to roll it out onto a large rectangle before we start filling it. So usually I just roll it out onto a very large rectangle, but I will measure it and let you know how big it will be. Or the rectangle, I probably need to grab just a little longer rolling pin for that one. Excuse me while I do that, just so that we don't create any lines. So you can see it is rolling quite nicely. And don't worry about too much if it's not super straight, that's okay too. But you want the width of it to be quite long so that when we roll it, it creates kind of like a swirl when we roll it in. And there we go. And also you don't want it to be like too thin, so just a little bit of thickness. So this looks about right. I'm going to just measure it, just to let you know. So this measures about 40 by 30 centimeters. So then with the date mixture that you prepared earlier, you can see it's not that soft. So what I usually would do is just do that with it to spread it out a little bit. And we're going to place it in the middle and just try and spread it out with the hand so that it goes all across and like nice and evenly, but don't push it too hard because you don't want to damage the dough itself. So we're just going to try and like spread it as thinly and evenly as possible, just in the center of the dough. And if we can make it go, it might help if you use a bit of wet hands, sometimes that helps. And I've got a little bit of water here, just so that it doesn't stick to your hands. And that's fine, as long, just like don't pour the water onto the mixture. There we go. So we'll try and spread it all the way. And then we'll trim it down. We'll trim the dough down a little bit just so that it has like straight edges. There we go. So yeah, I'm just going to trim any excess from the corners just to straighten it out a little bit so it's nice and straight once we roll it. And we're going to create 3 plats with this babka. You can create 2 and that's fine. 3 might be, well, some people find it a little challenging, but it's not too hard. It's also fun. So what we're going to do, we'll grab it from the edge, from the one closest to you, and we just gently lift the sides from the bottom like that, and we roll it all the way to create like a long log, and then just roll it out a little more so it creates like a long log. And we're just going to trim again the edges just to make it nice and even, and just get rid of any excess. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to create 3 long tails. So we'll start, if we measure out with a knife first, just like that, so they're all equal sizes, and leave a little bit of room from the top so that it's not all, it doesn't cut apart. So we'll just cut it with a sharp knife all the way down And the same here to create 3 long lines. Just like really gently. And then we can start plaiting. And this is the fun part. So I'm just going to trim a bit more. Okay. So, first of all, we're going to grab the right hand side, place it over the middle part, and then we'll grab the left, place it into the middle, and then what's left is the left one over into the middle. And just like you would plait your hair, we just do it really gently and try and do it as tightly as possible. Oh, so if it breaks a bit, just be careful that it doesn't break. And what I usually like to do after I've baked it is brush a little syrup on top, or you can use some jam, maybe like apricot jam, might be really nice with it. So once we've plaited it all, we're going to bring the bottom together to seal it together, and we will bring both sides together and seal them, press them into place, and then really carefully transfer that onto a lined baking tray. And then what we're going to do is let that proof for another half an hour before transfer it to the oven. So while that's proofing, preheat your oven to 180 degrees, and we'll be back just before we go into the baking. So the second proofing is done. It's been proven for about half an hour. So just before we get it into the oven, I'm going to brush it really lightly with some egg wash onto the actual dough, not the date mix. And then what we'll do, we'll bake it for around 25 to 30 minutes until golden brown. So you'll be able to judge at 180 degrees. So just very lightly, and if you like, you can sprinkle the actual dough with some pistachios, or it's not very necessary. I like to keep it exposed just because you can see the other bits anyway. I'm just making sure all the sides are lightly brushed. So that's done, and I'm going to put this into the oven for 25 to 30 minutes.